It's a summer afternoon in the 1980s. You came back from school, turned on your computer, and started spending your happy hours with Pinball Construction Set or Hard Hat Mac. Well, it happened because of one name, Electronic Arts, a company that brought some of the coolest games, even when video games were still something very new. But now they're known as the bad guys of the gaming world, a company that gamers love to hate. They've bought so many gaming studios and shut them down when profits fall, pushed people to spend more money through shady in-game purchases, and thought about profit rather than players. It's even been voted worst company in America at one point. But surprisingly, despite having all the downfalls, EA somehow maintained its constant growth. So what actually happened? How did a company with so many promises end up becoming an evil empire? Well, to understand that, we have to go back to a much simpler time, before the empire, before the backlash, before the billion-dollar business, to when Electronic Arts was just a small startup with a wild idea. Well, it all began back in 1982 with a 26-year-old guy named Trip Hawkins. At the time, he was working at Apple, and it was the era of the rise of personal computers. While most video games back then were just simple arcade-style copies, Trip saw something more. He believed video games had the potential to become a real form of art. To bring this vision to life, he raised $5 million from private investors, including Don Valentine from Sequoia Capital. That's when he founded the company in Redwood City, California. At first, it was called Amazon Software, but not long after, the name changed to Electronic Arts. Why? Because Trip saw games as a new kind of creative expression, where technology and art came together. In the beginning, things were pretty scrappy. EA's first office was just a small warehouse in South San Francisco. Everyone on the team wore multiple hats. Some even packed and shipped the games themselves. Their early titles, like Ark on the Light and the Dark and MULE, came out in 1983. The games came in boxes that looked like LP records, and the developers' names were right there on the cover, just like you'd see on a music album. And EA didn't stop there. They also created tools for digital artists, like Deluxe Paint for the Amiga, which quickly became a favorite in the industry. And they weren't afraid to take risks either. For example, they published Pinball Construction Set, a game that let players design and build their own pinball tables. That kind of creativity was rare at the time, and it showed that EA was thinking outside the box. Instead of following the crowd and chasing arcade ports, the company focused on home computers and built direct relationships with retailers. This strategy helped them stand out in a growing market. And it worked. By 1984, they were already making $2 million in revenue. Back then, Trip Hawkins used to ask a simple but powerful question: can a computer make you cry? It was his way of challenging developers to go deeper, to make games that weren't just fun, but also emotional, thoughtful, and artistic. As home computers became more popular in the mid-1980s, they saw a big opportunity and jumped right in. They started creating games for popular systems like the Commodore 64, the Amiga, and early personal computers. Their approach was smart. They would develop a game for the most popular system first, then adapt or port it to other platforms. Games like Skyfox and The Bard's Tale became big hits, and behind the scenes, EA was changing the game in another way too. Instead of selling through third-party distributors, they sold directly to retailers. This move gave them more control over their sales and better profits. So while they were making great games, they were also building a smart business model that could grow fast. In 1988, EA released John Madden Football, which quickly became a fan favorite. It wasn't just another sports game, it felt real, and people loved it. By 1991, they decided to launch a new label called EA Sports, and that turned out to be a game changer. Under this brand, they released major franchises like FIFA, NHL, and NBA Live. These weren't just games anymore, they became part of pop culture. Madden NFL especially became a must-have for sports fans everywhere. At the same time, EA started moving into the console world, just as the Sega Genesis and Sony PlayStation were taking off. And that's when their buying spree began. They started acquiring successful game studios, bringing them under the EA umbrella. Some big names included Maxis, known for The Sims, Westwood Studios, the creators of Command & Conquer, and Criterion, who made Need for Speed. With each acquisition, EA's power and game library grew. By the time the 2000s rolled in, EA had become a gaming giant. They had massive franchises like Battlefield, Mass Effect, and Dragon Age. They also landed big-name licenses like Star Wars and developed games like The Old Republic. In 2011, they launched Origin, a digital platform to compete with Steam and get more control over game sales. But all that growth didn't come without problems. While buying up studios gave EA access to new talent and ideas, it also created tension. Many of the studios they acquired had their own unique ways of working, and EA's corporate style didn't always mix well. By 2010, EA was making billions and had thousands of employees around the world. On the outside, everything looked like a huge success, but behind the scenes, things were getting shaky. At first, buying up game studios seemed a good thing, but over time, that same strategy started to backfire. EA became known as the evil empire among both gamers and developers. Why? Because many of the studios they bought, like Origin Systems, Ultima, Pandemic, Mercenaries, and Visceral Games, Dead Space, were eventually shut down. If a game didn't sell as well as expected or didn't fit EA's big-picture plans, the studio behind it often got the axe. Inside those studios, things were changing too. Teams were pressured to release sequels quickly, often under intense deadlines. And then came a major turning point in 2004. A blog post titled EA Spouse, written by Aaron Hoffman, went viral. It exposed EA's harsh working conditions, like 80-hour work weeks with no extra pay. The post sparked a major conversation across the gaming industry about crunch culture and unfair labor practices, and just like that, EA found itself under fire. But things got even worse in the years that followed, especially with the rise of microtransactions. In 2017, Star Wars Battlefront II caused a huge uproar. The game included a system where players had to either spend real money or grind through 40 hours of gameplay just to unlock popular characters like Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker. Players were furious and named the game Pay to Win. But despite the backlash, EA continued pushing microtransactions in other games, especially in FIFA Ultimate Team. That mode alone made the company about $1.6 billion in 2020. But for many fans, it felt like EA cared more about squeezing money from players than making fun games. And this wasn't an isolated case. Then in 2021, Battlefield 2042 was released in a buggy, half-finished state, and it got terrible reviews. In the same year, the company also faced thousands of questions about a data breach that leaked source code for FIFA 21 and the Frostbite engine. By this point, many players felt that EA was chasing profits instead of passion. Developers inside the company felt burned out and boxed in by corporate demands. The original dream of supporting software artists and giving creative freedom? It felt like a thing of the past. After years of backlash, you'd think EA would have learned a lesson, and in some ways, they have. The uproar over Battlefront 2 was a major wake-up call. Players pushed back hard, and for once, EA responded. They cut the hero unlock costs by 75% and pulled back on some of the more aggressive microtransactions. On the tech side, they're putting resources into Frostbite labs, exploring VR, and using AI to power smarter anti-cheat systems. And as the industry shifts toward new platforms, EA is getting ready, like preparing games for the Nintendo Switch 2, expected in 2025. However, the road ahead isn't exactly smooth. Many of the old habits haven't gone away. Sports games like FIFA, now rebranded as EA Sports FC, still face criticism for feeling like the same game every year. just with updated rosters and more in-game purchases. Behind the scenes, EA is still closing studios, like Cliffhanger Games in 2023, and cutting jobs, laying off 6% of their workforce that same year. These decisions paint a picture of a company that's still focused on profits over people. And don't forget the scars left behind. The 2021 data breach raised serious questions about EA's security. Meanwhile, longtime fans and developers alike are still haunted by the company's history of putting profits before passion. So EA's journey is a mix of ambition, innovation, and self-inflicted wounds. From the pioneer to having the tag of evil empire, today they stand at a crossroads. The story is not over, but it's up to Electronic Arts to write a better ending. Will they rise again or keep tripping over their own greed? Only time and the gamers will say.